Hello lovelies, welcome to day 15 of painting watercolor skies, and here is our gorgeous sunset sky for the day. We're going to try some pastel colors for the sky, and for this one I haven't used any reference image. It is actually a sky I witnessed when I was at the beach some days back. Now I'm going to explain about the colors you will require to paint this gorgeous pastel sky. For the sky I'm going to use 3 colors. There is a pastel orange on the top, then a pastel pink and some violet at the bottom along the horizon line. The pastel orange I have used here is called John Brilliant number 2 from Shinhan. It's not a common color, but it's a very simple pastel orange. You just need to add a bit of orange and a lot of white to create a similar color. We have tried this in the color palette section. Okay, it can be a bit more brighter if you prefer that. It's totally fine. Now the second color is a pastel pink, which is a color I have been using for most of the paintings. This one is Brilliant Pink, again from Shinhan. Now you will need one more color for the sky, which is violet. This one is Permanent Violet. You can go with any violet you have got. Okay, so those are the 3 colors I'll be using for the sky: pastel orange, pastel pink and violet. The next 2 colors you will need is burnt sienna or brown and also some Payne's gray. We'll need to paint the sand and also those rocks. So for those 2, you will need burnt sienna and Payne's gray. Okay, so that summarizes all the colors you will need for this gorgeous painting. Here is a closer look. You will need pastel orange, pastel pink, violet, burnt sienna and Payne's gray. Now before we start, let me walk you through the various steps involved. The very first step is obviously to paint the sky. We will add some orange on the top, then pink, and towards the bottom we will add some violet. Then onto that layer we will add some lines using violet again. Okay, so that's how the sky is gonna be. It's a simple yet a gorgeous sky which you can paint quite easily. Next we will paint the sea using the same colors. We will paint the base layer and we will add some textures on top of it. And finally we will paint the sandy area using a mix of burnt sienna and Payne's gray. We need a darker brown for this part. Then we will use Payne's gray to add the rocks. Okay, so those are the steps involved. It's a simple painting. It might look a bit tricky, but it is not. Anyway, without wasting any time, let's give it a try and you can find out how simple it is. I'm going to start with the sketch first. We need to add a horizon line. Then we need to add another irregular line to separate the sea and the sand. So add a horizon line a little below the center of the paper. Next to that, add an irregular line, more like a wavy line. So the shape of your line can be a little different. It doesn't need to be exactly the same. Okay. Now in between, I'm going to add some rocks. We need to add 1 or 2 over here and also along the horizon line. So first I will add along the horizon line. These are some rocky mountains. Next I'm going to add some tiny rocks over here. Alright, so that's a sketch. You can add more rocks if you want to, or you can add them as we're painting. I'm going to add 1 more over here. Okay, so that's a sketch. Now make sure you have all the colors ready before you start. For the sky, you will need a pastel orange, then a pastel pink and violet. Those are the 3 colors you will need for the first step. Now let's start by applying a coat of water onto the sky. Apply a shiny coat of water. Don't add too much water. So the basic idea is that there shouldn't be any water floating around. It just has to be a shiny, nice coat. That's all we need. Okay, so my sky is evenly wet. Now to apply the paint, I'm going to go with my size number 8 round brush. First, I'm making sure it is clean. Now I'm picking some pastel orange. We already spoke about this color in the color palette section. If you don't have a similar color, you can just add some white watercolor with any of the orange you have got. And you can easily create a similar color. In your mix, you should have less orange and more white. Now I'm picking some pink with the same brush. And I'm adding that at the center. And I'm blending that with this pastel orange. Give it a nice blend. Now towards the bottom, we'll have to introduce some violet. I think I will add some more pink, then I will go with violet. I don't want a lot of violet in the sky. Okay, next I'm picking some violet and I'm mixing that with a bit of pink and I'm adding that at the bottom along the horizon. Okay, so only over here I want the color to be a bit darker. For the rest, we have a beautiful pastel orange and a pastel pink. Add a straight line first, then blend that into the background. So make sure you're not adding a lot of violet. We only need a little along the horizon. The rest has to be some soft and nice colors. Okay, so add in violet and gently blend that into the background. So I have added a line there. Now with the same brush, I'm just smudging that into the background. It doesn't need to be a perfect blend. Just spread it and smudge it. That's all you have to do. Now with the same color, I'm going to add some lines onto the background. Maybe before that, I feel like making the colors a bit more brighter. I feel the pink is quite dull and even the orange we have on the top. So let me quickly do that first and then I will come back and add the lines. So I'm cleaning my brush and I'm going back with some pink. So what I'm doing right now is totally unnecessary. I just felt like adding some more paint onto the background. But if you feel you have enough pink and orange on your background already, you don't need to do this. Okay, so I just made the colors a bit more brighter, especially pink. Now I'm going to keep this brush aside. And I'm going with a smaller brush. And I'm picking violet again. First I will add some more paint at the bottom. And then I'm going to add some lines onto the background to make the sky more interesting. Right now it is just a simple blend of 3 colors. To make it more interesting, I'm adding some lines while the background is still wet. Okay? You can add them however you want. It's more like a medium tone and using that color, I'm just adding some lines onto the background. You can add them however you like. They can be thick or thin, they can be longer or shorter. It doesn't matter. Simply add them onto the wet background. I think towards the top, we can go with a pinkish tone, not really violet. So I'm picking more pink, adding that with violet to make it a little lighter. And I'm using that color on the top where we have orange. Okay. I think I have added enough of lines. It is looking really beautiful. Now I need to smudge it before it spreads a lot into the background. So dab your brush on a paper towel if there is a lot of water or paint on your brush. Then keep smudging it until you're happy with the result. If you want to introduce more lines onto the background, you could do that as well. So it is just a matter of painting that base layer and adding some lines onto it, and that's my sky. Now I'm going to leave it for drying. Okay, so that is dried. Next we are going to paint the sea, and for that as well we are going to use the same colors. We'll start with a bit of pastel orange. We'll add that along the horizon line, just a little. Then we will go with pink and then violet. The brush I'm using here is size number 6. Go with any of your smaller brush. Now I'm going with pink, adding that next to orange. Okay. We don't need a lot of orange in the background. The major color we need here is pink and violet. I'll leave only a little on the top. Okay, so that is pink. Next, I'm picking some violet. With the same brush, we have some leftover violet here. Add that onto the bottom section and also onto either side. So just add some lines from either side towards the center to introduce a bit of violet onto the background. Then smudge it. Now onto the bottom section as well, I'm adding some violet. So this violet is more like a pastel violet. It's the color we use for the clouds. It's a mix of pink and violet. It's not a darker tone, go with a similar tonal value. That is really important. Okay, I think I have added enough of violet onto the background. Now I'm going to go back with pink, just a little. And I want to extend this part to give it a more organic shape. Okay, so that is it. That's a base layer. Now we'll have to wait for this to dry before we go ahead with the next steps. Alright, so the base layer is ready. Now I'm going to add a few more lines onto this background using a medium tone of violet. Just a few lines onto either side. That looks a bit dark. It has to be thin lines. Don't make them too prominent. So go with the medium tone and add a few lines onto the background, especially onto either side. Okay. Now I'm going to add a few at the bottom as well. And after that, we can start with the sand. Be sure to go with the medium tone. Don't make it too dark. You can add in as many lines as you want, but be sure to go with the medium tone. Don't make it too prominent. Okay, so this one is done. Next, we can paint the sand. And for that, I'm going to go with a mix of burnt sienna and Payne's Gray. I want a color which is more like burnt umber. If you have burnt umber, you can use it directly. Or you can just mix some burnt sienna with Payne's Gray and create a similar color. I'm using a medium tone here. It is not too light. See that? So that's the color I'm using. Now onto this entire area, I'm going to add this color. We have some space in between as well. Now just in case if you couldn't leave this gap earlier, you can introduce that right now. It's not a problem. Okay. So onto that in between space, introduce this burnt umber and also at the bottom. While you're applying the paint, you can give it a better shape. Okay. So the color I'm using here is a mix of burnt sienna and Payne's Gray. According to the mix you are creating, the color can be a bit different. That's totally fine. It can be a bit more darker or lighter. Don't worry about it. Now let's fill up the rest in this color and give it a proper shape. Okay. If you use a lighter tone for the sand, the entire painting will look quite dull. So be sure to go with a similar tonal value. Don't make it lighter. I'm altering the shape a little. I'm making it a better shape. Okay. So that's a base layer. I have just used a mix of burnt sienna and Payne's Gray for the background. Now we have to introduce some darker tones onto the same background. Maybe I will add some more paint on the top. Okay, now with the same brush, I'm going to pick some Payne's Gray and I will add that into the mix. Now I will add that onto the background. So just drop in some darker tone onto the wet background, wherever you feel like. Okay, we have to do this while the background is still wet. It can be some small lines and small dots. They will spread into the background and leave a nice texture. You can see the instant difference those darker tones made. It is looking more beautiful now. Earlier it was quite dull. Okay, I will add a bit more. So I'm just adding some dots in between and they're spreading into the background, leaving a beautiful texture. You can also modify the shape if there is a need. Alright, so that's done. We have done adding those darker tones. Now the only task left is to add those mountains in the background and also the rocks in the foreground. And for that, I'm going to go back with Payne's Gray. I will use a darker tone. And I'm going to add some small mountains along the horizon line using Payne's Gray. That's the size I'm going with. You can make it a bit more bigger, but not too big. If it's too big, your painting will go out of proportion. So try to follow a similar size. I'm adding two, a smaller one and a bigger one. Maybe we can add one more next to that. Okay, now I'm going to add the rocks in the foreground. I'm going to add them over here, starting with a smaller one. Now adding a bigger one next to that. To give it more natural look, go for an irregular shape. See that? So first I'm adding the outline and then I'm filling that up. You can go with any shape. They can be bigger or smaller. That's totally up to you. But place them in a very random way and don't add them all in the same shape. Okay, so I have added a smaller one and a bigger one. Now I will add another one. Add the rocks in a very random way so that it will look more natural. I'm adding the next one here. It's a smaller one. Okay, now another smaller one over here. Okay, that looks quite good. I don't want to add a lot. Next, I'm dabbing my brush on a paper towel. And with that dry paint, I'm adding some texture on the ground. Just a few here and there. I won't be adding a lot. We already have enough darker tones over there. So just in between, I will add some dry patterns using that darker tone. Okay. Now we have one more task left. And for that, I'm making my paint wet. I'm using the same tone, mix of brown and Payne's gray. And with that, I'm going to add some lines underneath these rocks to show the reflection. So pick some darker brown and add a few lines underneath the rocks. Go with any of your smaller brush and add in a few lines. See that? We only need a few, don't add a lot. And add them underneath the rocks. Some of them can be wider and some of them can be shorter. Okay, now we have one more rock here. For that as well, I'm adding a few lines. If you want to add another rock or change the shape or anything, you can do that right now. I think this rock here is a bit smaller. So I'm just going to extend the lines first. Then I will make it a bit more bigger. I feel the lines are more wider than the rock. So I'm just going to extend the shape a little more. Okay, it looks better now. Okay, so that's how it has turned out. If you want to add more rocks, feel free to do that. You can add more along the horizon or onto the sandy part. Okay, so that's my painting for the day. I really like the way it has turned out, especially the sky and the reflection. Now it's time to peel off the masking tape. So always peel your masking tape at an angle without rushing. Make sure your painting has dried completely before you peel off your masking tape. And here is our gorgeous pastel sunset for the day. It's a lovely sky and an easy one too.